We'll start the, okay, the first one I have is the Don. We gotta wait. Okay. I do not see Dan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he won't be here.
Dan Whitney.
Pardon? Okay. So, Don, do you have a public comment then or not? Okay, so we'll bypass you right now, and then there's a Jesse. If you come up and state your name. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Commissioners, the very statement of the Todd County Government Structure page states that the structure begins with the County Board of Commissioners, that these 5 commissioners represent the citizens within their district and address the citizens' concerns, oversee activities, and ensure that the county will fulfill all federal and state requirements. And the county is trying to silence their voices. I'm addressing briefly the comments circulating that some of the commissioners have been maybe advised to abstain from today's vote on the Dairy Ridge CUP. I see no statutory.
Yes.
Excuse me if I may, you must have 2 microphones on there or something.
Something,
because
you're
it's-
getting that,
we're
it's
not
very,
getting much
very
of what
hard to
you're
hear
saying.
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this better?
Maybe use a different microphone.
Do you want me to not use a microphone? I can talk loud.
Different one, just shut one off.
Yeah, and put it closer to you maybe.
Better?
Yeah.
A little bit? Okay. Let me know if you can't hear me. I am just briefly addressing the comments circulating that some of the commissioners have been advised to maybe abstain from today's vote.
Just not use the microphone?
Yeah, we almost have to because we can't
We can't
tell what
understand
you're
you.
saying.
No.
Back it up from you.
Okay. I see no statutory reason to preclude any commissioners from voting today, and there's no common law authority for it either. Each of these commissioners were elected by their districts to serve them, and I anticipate your votes to be representative of the people within your district and make sure that federal and state requirements are fulfilled as stated on your website. The first is section 103G.261 water allocation rights. The commissioner shall, and that's not permissive, shall adopt rules for allocation of water based on the following priorities. First priority is domestic water supply, and the third, not second, even third, is agricultural irrigation and consumption of 10,000 gallons per day. There is no, it's not a guesstimate. They know that there are water issues and that they're killing this aquifer. The next is section 505 of the zoning ordinance regarding conditional use permits. In granting a conditional use permit, the board shall, again, not permissive, but must, shall consider the effect of the proposed use on the health, safety, and general welfare of the occupants of the surrounding lands. I won't go through each of the subparens because there's not much time today. However, the There's three things that I do want to briefly address, including subparent 3, that the applicant must demonstrate a need for the proposed use. I have not seen in the paperwork or before me that there is a need demonstrated to increase animal units. Desire, maybe. Need, what is it? Second, going back to subparent 5 of the conditional use permit zoning ordinance, that the use will not create a pollution hazard or detrimental environmental effects. And this needs to consider degradation of water surfaces and groundwater supplies. Nitrates are one thing, but you also have before you a letter from the DNR literally stating that wells within 1 mile of this are put at risk. 6 high risk, 4 moderate risk, and 3 at low risk, and more that are unknown. All at risk of running out of water if this passes. There are sustainability issues when Dairy Ridge uses water from B1 aquifer. And there will be sustainability issues, I'm assuming, if it's used from other aquifers as well. Dairy Ridge, the DNR has told you that there is groundwater supply issues. The zoning ordinance provides that the granting of a cup will not affect water supplies. Aside from the traffic, infrastructure, and water quality, this should be the only reason you need to support a denial of this conditional use permit. In the DNR paperwork, there's a history dating back at least to the late 80s establishing interferences with wells based on this facility's use of their water. This is not something that should be rubber stamped here today. There's a strong basis to deny it under state law and local ordinance. And again, the government's page states that this board is the one to oversee and ensure that the county meets the legal requirements, including the laws and ordinances. Thank you.
The next one on here.
David Becker.
Is David Becker. Oh, okay. I've got 3 more.
Might be a hard act to follow. I'm David Becker. Do I have to sign in here?
No, you've already signed.
The dog ate my homework. And I'm not making this up. Okay, last week is this coming in?
Yeah, you better opt in.
I woke up early in the morning thinking about all this was going on, and I might as well turn the TV on, and there's an old black and white Western on TV called The Restless Gun, I think. Well, the guy's riding his horse into town, and he looks around, looks good, but he realizes something's amiss. Rides down the street, it's a ghost town, tumbleweeds blowing, signs hanging crooked, broken windows, you get the picture. Anyway, he gets up to what was once the local saloon. And the sign is still there hanging sideways. There's an old long-haired bearded derelict sitting on the steps, and his mule is tied nearby. And the guy said, "What happened? What went wrong?" And the guy looks up with a dumb look on his face, and he said, "He ran out of water." End of story. So it goes. That's my 3 minutes of fame.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack Rohr. Just so you keep in mind that we have to start the board meeting at 9 o'clock, so.
Jack
Good
Rohr.
morning.
If the precipitation we have received in the last 3 years is any indication of what this area might receive in the next few years, then everybody is going to be looking for good water. The map of Dairy Ridge Aquifer Wells, that's this one here, location map showing HB1 aquifer boundary, shows a yellow line through the middle of Lake Latimer. The Minnesota Well Index shows all the wells, even pivot 2, well on the west side of Lake Latimer to be drawing from B1 aquifer. The B1 aquifer boundary line does not go far enough to the east either on this map. And the wells off of County Road 12, which is the road going to Swanville, all the way east of Township 101, are drawing from B1, not what the map shows. So which is right, Minnesota Well Index or this map here? Long Prairie Middle School is showing B1 also, they're drawing from there. There are wells north of Long Prairie drawn out of B1 aquifer, some watering the potato fields, some supplying residents. The preliminary map assignment, 2024 map shows designated trout stream to the south. This one here. Shows, trout stream to the south. That is where that stream begins. Dairy Ridge has been stockpiling manure on the fields across the road from that stream a couple of weeks ago. If Dairy Ridge LLC is making safety one of their top priorities, they would require their equipment and hired equipment to refrain from using 220th Street whenever they can. There are a few people that walk and ride bike on that road. It doesn't have any shoulders, and there are blind approaches with steep hills. And that's just south of the or southeast of the lake of Charlotte. The residents south of Lake Charlotte are really close to the road and not much space to even park their cars. In the recent weeks and months, I have had 2 close calls with Dairy Ridge pickup with that white pickup with a 5th-wheel cattle trailer. They are driving way too fast, coming off of 287 onto 220th Street and on the curve south of Lake Charlotte. There are better locations for corporate dairies. This is not a place for them. There are items that need further review, then schedule another meeting in the next 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks before this must be voted on. So,
Thank you.
but yeah,
We
these
have-
maps are not right.
Okay. We have 2 more speakers yet. Corey Hudala.
Carrie.
Carrie, okay. So you have about 2 minutes to get our other speaker up.
a minute. Carrie Hudala, 220th Street. Talking to different farmers in the area, whichever, with the project of this magnitude, doesn't justify in the milk prices what they are now and would even be in the future unless they, so still bottom line with the Farm Bill legislation, whatever, if his money train faucet would quit, this project would dry up in a week's time. Then our faucets would run.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Matthew?
Commissioners, Matthew Holt. Just a few things. If you guys are choosing to go forward with this, that's up to you. But I asked that then you make a condition that they go ahead and have a road cut behind Jack Roar's house to get them right onto 210th Street, so then that way they can get over to the dry barn without ever having to touch 287. The other thing would be that I believe Commissioner Newman had brought it up in the past about them being able, you guys still holding the cards. I'm paraphrasing. However, with that being stated, I guess, what about if you had a way that you went ahead and had them submit water use permits to you guys after receiving it from the DNR every year, in which case that continues to allow them to operate? Otherwise, it is then they have to go back to their previous animal units. So every year they have to submit that in, which then allows them to go ahead and go forward with their stuff, verifying that all the water is actually meeting what they're supposed to be doing, and they are getting the permits. The reason why obviously this whole thing isn't what we're talking about is because of the fact that they have a pattern of failure. to get them in the past, right? So, I don't know if you guys want this map of what I was talking about, where that road could be drawn, otherwise I can keep it. That's all I have, thank you.
You want to make that?
Okay. You just- whatever I get.
We hear about all the gallons of water that are gonna be pumped from the H1 aquifer, but is that gonna be enough to stop the decline of the B1 aquifer? We don't know. What I'd like to know is how many gallons will be used out of the B1 aquifer, including parlor washing, cow drinking, and irrigation. And we're wondering why there wasn't a test well put in immediately in 2021 when there was well interferences. From what I understand, it went in like a year later. Who's all gonna be monitoring that well, is what we were wondering. Wondering why this expansion can't be put on a robust aquifer, a stable one. How much does the dry spring and winter and spring affect the aquifer? It was mentioned that irrigating at night would save water, but then I see the irrigator north of 220th Street running onto the road through lowland that has a drainage ditch in it. Wondering why a valve can't be put in near the end of that irrigator, that when it gets to that lowland, it shuts it off instead of putting all that water in that lowland that doesn't need water. That would save way more than running it at night. I can't see how an aquifer dropping 1 foot per year is sustainable. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barb,
Yes.
Madam Chair, I mean, did we have a name for that gentleman? Thank you.
You, okay?
We're ready, yep.
Okay. Good morning, and welcome to the Todd County Board of Commissioners regular board meeting. All commissioners are present, along with the auditor, treasurer, and our county attorney. We will now stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will, are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, we need to pull 8.1, approval to hire additional legal assistant due to the fact that we have to go through the protocol of Finance Committee, Personnel, work session, and then back to the board. And the other one would be probably 9.2. I think we have to have more discussion with the county sheriff on the hire of the additional full-time court security.
Okay. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? If not, I'd ask for a motion for approval.
So moved.
Motion by Noska, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Byers. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Denise, consent items?
Consent items today are meeting minute approval for February 20th, 2024. Greystone Golf Club, 1-year liquor license. Head of the Lakes Resort, 1-year 3.2 malt liquor license. Head of the Lake Resort, 1-year setup license. Head of the Lakes Resort, 1-year wine license. Gambling permit, Central Minnesota Whitetails, that'll happen on 4/6 of '24. A gambling permit for Little Birch Lake Association, event happening 9/14 of 2024. Hire Bo Garthis, full-time road deputy, start date to be determined. Resignation of tiled service social worker Angela Hopkins, 3/1/2024. Hire accounting specialist Andrea Shemaya, start date to be determined. Hire eligibility worker Seth Bushi, start date 3/6/2024.
Okay, you heard the consent items. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion by Denny. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
First item I have today then is the auditor warrants. Background is sent for your review. Recommendation is to approve the February 2024 auditor warrants with an ACH and a manual payment totaling in the amount of $2,121,756.30.
Okay, is there a motion for the approval of the auditor warrants?
So moved.
Motion by Newman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Byers. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll do roll call.
Commissioner Newman,
Yes.
Commissioner Byers.
Yes.
Commissioner Denny,
Yes.
Commissioner Nasca,
Yes.
Commissioner Becker.
Yes.
The next item I have is the commissioner warrants. Again, background is sent for your review. Recommendation is to approve the commissioner warrants with an ACH and a manual payment totaling the amount of $57,664.64.
Okay, is there a motion for the approval of the commissioner's warrants?
So moved.
Motion by Denny. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Nasca. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll do roll call.
Commissioner Denny,
Yes.
Commissioner Nasca,
Yes.
Commissioner Byer,
Yes.
Commissioner Newman,
Yes.
Commissioner Becker.
Yes.
The next item I have would be the Health and Human Service Commissioner warrants. Background is sent for your review. Recommendation is to approve the Health and Human Service Commissioner warrants with an ACH and a manual payment totaling the amount of $55,264.28.
Is there a motion for the approval of the Health and Human Service Commission warrants?
So moved.
Motion by Byers. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Denny. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call.
Commissioner Byers?
Yes.
Commissioner Denny?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Nasca?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker.
Yes.
The next item I have is the Health and Human Service SSIS warrants. Background is sent for review. Recommendation is to approve the Health and Human Service SSIS warrants with an ACH and a manual payment totaling the amount of $95,117.83.
Okay, is there a motion for the Health and Human Services SSIS warrants?
So moved.
Motion by Newman, seconded
Yep.
by Nasca. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Nasca?
Yes.
Commissioner Denny?
Yes.
Commissioner Byers?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker.
Yes.
The next board action I have is an all-county departmental change and petty cash fund annual approval. Background is, in order to remain in compliance with the state auditing standards and statutes, it is recommended to approve annually the change and petty cash funds across the county departments. The attached resolution is reaffirming the petty cash and change funds with no modifications since previously adopted in 2022. And they are listed on the IFS listing here that shows each department that carries a petty cash, just so they can make change in their office, but we have to have that for audit purpose, and it has to be by board action approval.
Okay, is there a motion for the approval of the petty cash funds amounts?
So moved.
Motion by Byers, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Denny. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
All right, the next action I have then is the Todd County Parks and Trails transfer. Todd County Parks and Trails 2024 appropriation. Background is we have the attached letter from the Parks and Trails asking for their appropriation. Your options are to approve the resolution or do not, and is the recommendation to approve the resolution for the 2024 Parks and Trails appropriation funds of $9,000 from Todd County allocation funds to the Todd County Parks and Trails Fund.
It's budgeted, correct, Denise?
It is a budgeted item, yes. Sorry, that should have been checked.
It should
but-
have been checked,
Yeah, it
okay.
should have been, yeah.
Is there a motion for approval for the Todd County Parks and Trails 2024 appropriations?
So moved.
Motion by Newman, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Byers. Discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, just to give some of the new board members a little background on this. This is an 8-mile trail running from the Douglas County line to the Stearns County line through Gordon and West Union Township. County board got involved probably 2001, did not put any funding aside for it. It was requested to put $1,000 a mile away at that time in 2001. We didn't start putting money away till about probably 2008. So that's the background on it. So, and the other $1,000 is for the boat ramp that is at Battle Point Park, which the county is in charge of, not the DNR. So that's the background.
Thank you. We had a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Thank you. We go to the ditch.
I will be reading that for Nancy today. We are
Okay.
acknowledging a receipt of County Ditch 33 Hold Harmless Agreement, ditch maintenance and install private crossing. She has attached the whole harmless agreement and the aerial photos. Appears to be in Reynolds Township. Application was made, John Yoder. Maintained ditch, original width and depth. And so her recommendation is, acting as ditch authority, acknowledges the receipt of a hold harmless agreement petition to clean out a section of County Ditch 33 and install a private crossing on parcel 20-00-35402 in Reynolds Township, section 32.
Okay, is there a motion for County Ditch 33 Hold Harmless Agreement?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Noska, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Denny. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Public Works, good morning, Lauren.
Morning, Lauren.
Our one item on the agenda this morning for Public Works is a request to approve the attached cooperative construction agreement for the city of Browerville to construct and maintain a trail along our County Road 21, just east of the intersection of 71 in the city of Browerville. This item was discussed last meeting at the work session. We had a good conversation with the city of Browerville. They were here to discuss what's they're being proposed, put together all that stuff in the attached agreement. And the agreement lays out the roles and responsibilities for both parties. The key item for the county to consider in this cooperative construction agreement is that this is done at the whole cost of the city of Browerville. So they will construct it and maintain it for the entirety that the trail will be in our right-of-way. So with that, our two options are to approve or do not approve the attached cooperative construction agreement, and our recommendation is to approve the attached cooperative construction agreement as written.
Okay, is there a motion for cooperative construction agreement between the Browerville Trail along County Road 21?
I'll make a motion for it.
Motion by Noska, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Byers. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Thank
All
you,
right,
Lauren.
thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
John? You have on 8.2?
That's just the, asking for the approval of the, city prosecutor contracts for Virgin Bay, the West Union Course, Eagle Bend, or the Hewitt's recommendations, the board approved the,
Okay. Is there a motion for the contracts for the cities for 2024?
So moved.
Motion by
Denny.
Denny. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Noska. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? and carries. Good morning, Mike.
Morning.
Mike? First board action is,
Oh, those mics, you, just hold on.
this one bad?
That's a bad mic.
You get such feedback, it's like you've got an echo.
I hope it wasn't me. All right, Commissioners, thank you. First board action I have is a request. Due to the increase of investigative work at the Sheriff's Office and an additional investigator is needed, we spoke during personnel and work session about new requirements for our investigative team, and we're just behind. And we've got some grant-funded items that we have that we're not able to have been fulfilled in the last couple of years because we're short-staffed in the investigative department. So we're asking for one additional investigator. So the request is that one additional investigator at a grade 11. The options is to create that additional full-time investigator position or do not create that full-time position. And our recommendation is to create the additional full-time investigator position at grade 11, where they currently are.
Okay, and it's been budgeted,
It has been budgeted, yes, ma'am.
okay. And so I'll ask for a motion for the creation of a full-time investigator's position.
So moved.
Motion by Byers, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Discussion?
Yeah, Madam Chair? if I
Yes.
may? So I see it's a budget item, we're adding another employee. Where does the funding come from out of our budget? Is just our general? your
That'd be the
budget?
general one, Commissioner. The grant-funded portion that I was speaking of is we have a grant that allows us to do, be compensated for welfare fraud. And we haven't had an opportunity to have our investigators work on that as often as they can because they're taxed with other responsibilities. So this would just be a general fund.
Okay, perfect. I was
position.
just curious, it's nice to know the background on it. Thanks.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
And then 9.3 is
Yes.
There's a request for an updated on our body camera system. The background is the Sheriff's Office need to replace our current body camera system. Our current system has become outdated, and we're unable to get additional parts for when they break down. Policy states that we need to have body cameras now, and a large number of the sheriff's departments in the state are using their public safety funds that they received this year. And this is a huge purchase for most of them. So our request is that we'd like to replace our camera system with the new Motorola system at the price of $113,870. The options are to purchase new body cameras by Motorola or do not purchase, and our recommendation is to purchase those Motorola body camera system. And there should have been I sent up some information on that. I don't know if we got it on there or not. And you can see we get 22 body cameras for, per policy for all our staff that are on the road. I know there's a push right now for the jails to have body cameras. We'll retain our old ones and utilize them if that ever becomes a need.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion for the purchase of the body cameras.
So moved.
Motion by Noska, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Byers, discussion. Mike, is that basically only one company, or is this, who is the best person for you to work with?
There's a couple, Madam Chair, there's a couple different options, but this works well with some of our current equipment that we have. WatchGuard is our current one. They've been bought out by Motorola, and so it's a good fit.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And it carries. Thank you.
ma'am.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
We'll go to solid waste. Mike is not here to present?
I guess I can read it. I didn't, nobody informed me. They have an MPCA grant.
We're way ahead of schedule, though. Maybe that's why Mike's not here.
Oh. Could be.
Yeah, we're a month.
Huh?
20 minutes there.
We are,
Well, you know, we can move on and come back to him if he shows up.
okay.
If you'd like
we'll
to do
put-
that.
Okay.
It's up to you.
And then before we go into the planning and zoning part of it, let's take a 10-minute break, okay? Oh, just wait.
Get it figured out.
Sorry, guys. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. The first item is. Okay, is this one better? Okay. All right, first is the Rodriguez request for CUP, an application for CUP to establish an event center on parcel 14009600 in Candona Township. Was submitted on December 27th. was reviewed by the Planning Commission during the February 1st public hearing, and the final recommendation was to grant the CUP with conditions. The item was tabled from the previous commissioners' meeting in anticipation that the applicant was going to withdraw their request, and since then, we have received that formal request. This is more of a FYI more than anything. There's no action that's needed because the applicant has taken upon themselves to put an end to the application. So this is just more of FYI. Ready?
Yep.
Okay.
11.2.
All right, is the amendment to section 9.08 sewage treatment standards. An amendment to section 9.08 has been reviewed by the Planning Commission and recommended for adoption. The amendments were reviewed during the February 20th, 2024 Commissioners' Work Session. Review has also been completed by the MPCA, and the proposed amendment is now ready for adoption. Options are to adopt the amendment as presented or to remand it back to the Planning Commission for further consideration. Recommendation is to adopt the findings of the Planning Commission and adopt the amendment as presented.
Okay, I would ask for a motion for amendments to section 9.08 for the sewage treatment standards.
I'll make a motion to adopt.
Okay, motion by Nazca, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Denny, discussion.
Yes, Madam Chair, I got a question. With these new standards, what's the cost increase gonna be on a average septic system?
That's a tough question. It's tough to answer that. Most of your cost is gonna be in tanks sizing, which the only area that affects anything is in that 3 to 4 bedroom scenario or a 5 to 6 bedroom scenario. And there will be a little bit more cost because the tank sizing, instead of being 1,000-gallon tank up to 4 bedrooms, that's at 3 bedrooms. So then at a 4-bedroom, you now have a 1,500-gallon tank. So that's gonna be a little bit of cost difference. Outside of that, I mean, the cost of that system is completely dependent upon the contractor that's working on it and wherever they bid at. I would suspect we will see maybe a minor increase in system cost, but I think the results of this amendment to our ordinance is minimal in comparison to just the general cost of inflation on these septic systems. We've seen a massive increase in the past 2-3 years on these system costs already.
So our constituents will be paying more for a septic system?
Yes, I can't say that as an absolute dead fact. This is what I would suspect, just simply based on the fact that a majority of houses are probably in that 3 to 4 bedroom range, and now that cutoff under the new rule for the larger tank size is at a 4-bedroom.
Have all the counties adopted these new standards, or?
No, not every county, but a majority of them, I would say, are operating under the new septic rule. I actually don't know. Morrison maybe is under the old rule yet, and Wadena, I don't know that for sure, but a majority of our neighbors have adopted the new rule.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
And it will carry. I believe there was only one no. Thank you. And I don't know if we want to go into Dairy Ridge before, if we,
I'll just get out of the way for now.
yeah. Did someone talk to Mike? He is on his way, correct? Yeah.
How many people do we have online?
I can't see that. I can't see that on mine.
Oh, okay.
Because mine's on the network. Mine's not on YouTube.
Okay.
It's all Mike, or-
I was just curious.
Check for you.
Okay.
I don't know,
Hey, Dan.
yeah. Jackie, do you have other people coming up with you or not? You do, okay, we'll wait then, yeah.
What? 12 people streaming. 12?
Oh, I thought there'd be more.
Yes.
Yeah, just for the public, is there any way to turn the microphones up out in this area?
Lisa?
Yeah, here. It's already up.
Yeah, you can turn those back. Yeah, you gotta keep hitting it.
Oh my lord.
Try that, otherwise if you go here, these are individual ones,
Okay,
depending on which
Sure.
ones are out there.
I'll just keep hitting this. It went up a little bit, so.
Here comes Mike.
Okay, Mike's here right now.
Okay.
Hi, Mike.
Come on up.
Come on up.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, the first action I have for you today is the NPCA cap grant. NPCA selected Todd County to receive a grant in the amount of $186,625. The Greater Minnesota Waste Reduction, Reuse, Recycling, and Composting Grant will allow Todd County to increase available remote recycling sites for its residents, thus promoting waste reduction and reuse programs in areas where recycling collection is currently unavailable. County match dollars is $62,350, bringing the total project cost to $248,975. To utilize the grant funds, Todd County is required to sign the cap grant agreement from the NPCA. This project has been discussed among the Solid Waste Committee. The options is for the Director, Chris McCon, to sign the cap grant agreement or do not authorize the signature of the grant agreement. It is our recommendation to authorize Chris McCon to sign this grant agreement for $186,625.
Okay, is there a motion for
So-
the,
So move.
okay, motion by Newman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Denny. Discussion. Yes, Mike, was this the one that Region 5 helped us?
That is correct.
Okay,
Yep. And we are proposing roughly 2 remote sites to start with currently.
yes, and I believe that was stated within the grant.
Yes.
Yes, okay, very good. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Thank you. Okay, Adam.
Was his mic on? I don't know if his microphone was on. No.
Just that loud.
Kathy texted me that she couldn't hear him.
Oh,
So,
Yes.
Yep.
Adam, do you want to put all those mics on? Yeah. Thank you.
Ready for the whole gang then, too?
Well, no, you're presenting.
Okay, all right. All right. Let me get organized again here. Okay, Dairy Ridge LLC, request for CUP. An application for a CUP to expand an existing feedlot on parcel 1800-40700, Long Prairie Township, from 2,373 animal units to 3,353 animal units was submitted on November 13th, 2023. The application also included the construction of 2 new total confinement barns, expansion of an existing barn, construction of a new liquid manure storage basin, and expansion to the feed storage area. The application was reviewed by the Planning Commission during the December 7th and January 4th, 2024 public hearings. And the final recommendation from the Planning Commission was to grant the CUP with the following condition, the conditions listed below. Options are to grant the CUP with conditions, deny the CUP, or remand it back to the Planning Commission. That is no longer an option at this point due to the timing of the decision. So the recommendation is to adopt the findings of the Planning Commission and to grant the CUP on parcel 1800-40700 with the following conditions. 1, that the applicant must obtain NPDS permitting prior to issuance of land use permits. 2, the applicant must obtain Minnesota DNR waters withdrawal permitting and provide verification of permitting to Todd County. 3, air quality exemption notices shall be provided to Todd County prior to all future manure application events. 4, liquid manure storage structure shall have the capacity of no less than 12 months storage. All manure storage shall be constructed prior to stocking of additional animal units. 5, in the event of manure spill or other discharge, applicant must notify the county and the Minnesota duty officer immediately upon discovery of said discharge. And 6, that the applicant must abide by all their applicable federal, state, and local standards. So the conditions that I read there are what was presented, which was the recommendation of the Planning Commission. So I'm delivering that. I do have the list of conditions that we reviewed at the previous work session here too, to review when we're ready. The only other note I want to make in advance, because I'm sure there's questions and such, is today is going to be approaching the 120-day deadline. So we're here to make a decision, being that the deadline is the 12th of March. You heard the Planning Commission's recommendation here. If the board finds the findings to go against the Planning Commission's recommendation, we need to have the findings to support that decision on the record today. So we have that in the findings document. Outside of that, I will turn it over to the board for questions.
Okay. Some of the additional that you had listed before, conditions to it, there was one from a township,
Yep.
and the township informed us that you did not have it in writing from the township?
Yeah, we had never received anything in writing from the township on any portion of it. That condition was generated. So the way we generated those is just based on all the response from the public, concerns of the board, all these things. We tried to generate just a list of conditions to address all the concerns we possibly could, recognizing that some of those may have to be removed in the process or amended, whatever. So yeah, Commissioner Noska had made me aware of that initially, that he talked with Long Prairie Township and they did not support a condition such as that. I have it listed in here, and obviously easy to scratch in the process when we get to that point, if that's the decision
Long Prairie
made.
Township's also talked with us.
Yeah.
And they were not in favor of that condition at all, and it is a township road. We as a county have no say
And I believe
over
we
their
should-
township
We
road.
should honor their wishes and. remove
Absolutely,
that one,
we
yeah.
have to.
Right, correct.
Okay, then I would open it up to the board for questions.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Could you read the rest of the conditions for us again? So we can, I mean,
Sure.
I know this is repetitive and we've
Yeah.
gone through it over and over again, but I'd like to.
Yep, no
hear 'em
problem,
all
glad to
one
do
more
it.
time, just so we're
Yep,
all on the
so
same page here.
with the removal, that was condition number 15 previously, so we'll have 15 now. So I'll start at the top here. These are the ones from the previous work session, right? You're looking for, Commissioner Noska?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
that's what he is
All
looking
right.
for.
1, that the applicant must obtain NPDS permitting for the proposed expansion prior to issuance of land use permits. 2, no future building permits for feedlot components shall be issued without prior approval of the MPCA as long as animal units and numbers met or increased beyond the state NPDS, SDS, and federal CAFO definition. 3, applicant must obtain alternate Minnesota DNR waters withdrawal permitting and provide verification of approval of approved permitting to Todd County prior to issuance of land use permits. 4, applicant must obtain construction stormwater permitting in accordance with Minnesota Rule 7090. 5, the stormwater erosion control plan within any engineered design shall be provided to Todd County prior to start of construction. Todd County employees shall have the right to enter the property with advance notice throughout the 2024 through 2029 NPDS construction permit period to ensure stormwater protections are in place. 6, air quality exemption notices shall be provided to Todd County prior to all future manure application events. The notification shall include field identification, location, and manure density, manure application rate, period of application, procedure of application, and timing of incorporation. 7, land application fields and setback maps shall be provided to Todd County on an annual basis for no less than the first 5 years of the MPCA issued permit. 8, applicant shall provide annual land application records to the MPCA and the local feedlot program for review no later than March 15th of the year following the land application event to be reviewed. 9, all land applications shall adhere to Minnesota 7020 setbacks, including 100-foot setbacks to Sandpoint and other sensitive wells as defined by the Minnesota Department of Health, whether in use or not, and 50 feet from any non-sensitive well, whether private, irrigation, commercial, or livestock well. These setbacks increase during winter application to a 300-foot setback to all wells and surface waters and must also adhere during winter land application events. 10, Liquid manure storage structure shall have the capacity of no less than 12 months storage based on the annual manure production of the total animal units after any expansion, with inclusion of all wastewater and runoff water from open lots being directed to the liquid manure storage area. All manure storage shall be constructed prior to stocking of additional animal units. 11, proposed liquid manure storage area shall be constructed entirely outside of the current drinking water supply management area for the city of Long Prairie. 12, applicant shall develop an emergency management plan in both English and Spanish and shall have the plan posted in farm vehicles and key locations throughout the dairy site. 13, applicant shall seek application to and recommendations from the Minnesota Ag Water Quality Certification Program before year 2024. 14, in the event of manure spill or other discharge, applicant must notify the county and the Minnesota duty officer immediately upon discovery of said discharge. And then 15, the last one would be the applicant must abide by all other applicable federal, state, and local standards.
Okay, I'll open it up for commissioners for questions.
Madam Chair, Denise, can you bring that map up of B1? That our GIS department was so nice to draft up for us.
I'm gonna have to go to this for a minute.
There we go. All right. So our GIS office, and Adam had a little bit to do with this also, drafted this up for the commissioners so we had a better understanding of, number one, our constituents that are involved in this. We needed to know their location. Number two, 210th Street's the line. North of 210th Street is Commissioner Byers' district. South at 210th Street is my district. When I ran for office, I am here to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the constituents of Todd County. So you look at this map and you look at all the people that are affected. And there's a pile of them. And as a commissioner, I'm concerned. It's water. Yes, I do have an aunt and uncle that live in Bob's district, Rod and Linda Campankle. I don't have a conflict. I don't have a direct conflict with them. My conflict is with the water. And I'm gonna ask the county attorney, that aquifer, that water in that aquifer, who the hell owns it?
The state of Minnesota owns that.
Who owns aquifer?
State
Okay, now, do these individuals pay the state of Minnesota to get water when they drill a well?
That would be beyond the scope of my
I'm just asking, John. We need a legal opinion on this, okay? It's basically a fight over water, okay? What are we supposed to do?
The issue before the board right now is approving or denying the CUP. Your question was who owns the water. I think we can all agree that the state of Minnesota owns the water. Beyond that, I'm not sure what else I can add from a county attorney standpoint. I don't want to overstep my role, because this is an issue before the board to vote on, I don't get a vote.
I think I'd like to weigh in on
Okay.
the B1
Commissioner Byers.
aquifer discussion. As I understand it, the DNR at this point has not approved the permitting of the B1 wells, the draw, as of 7:30 or so this morning. We are still waiting for approval of those water appropriations. And part of my concern is not only that area, but in my discussions with the DNR, I understand that there's been 2 permits applied for within that B1 aquifer. I believe one is totaling 8 million gallons per year, and the other one is 17 million gallons per year, which just comes to 25, simple math there. And in a dry year, 2021, I think my memory recalls back from the planning and zoning meeting, there was a withdrawal of 31 million gallons out of that aquifer. And we had numerous well interferences. So the 31 to 25 million gallon, it is a reduction, but the bigger issue is there has not been any groundwater technical analysis that has been done by the DNR. And what a groundwater technical analysis does, it determines the health of this aquifer. Okay. The DNR is waiting for information from the data loggers on those monitoring wells to determine an elevation threshold. And without that information, they're unable to do what's called the safe yield analysis. What the safe yield analysis does is it determines what is the safe amount of water that B1 aquifer can be pulled from. Okay, is it 8 million? Is it 24 million? Is it 32 million? Is it 1 million? Is it a gallon? I mean, I don't have that information to make a decision. And that's super troubling to me because of the amount of people this affects. I do believe that in the future, when they do have, in the future meaning the next, could be coming months, could be by the end of the year, I don't know the exact, I don't think Mark Larson could tell me that. I think he's got to take it to his staff and his people. But once they determine that safe yield aspect, that number is the number. If you're in that aquifer, you will not get more than what that safe yield number is. We don't know what the safe yield number is. The other thing that I understand from the DNR is that the permits that have been applied for in this aquifer B1, the 8 million gallons, the 17 million gallons per year, those numbers are also dependent upon the existing livestock number, as Mark told me this morning, not the expansion number. So it can't be 25 million, 12, the expansion numbers aren't in there. That's just questions that, I mean, the discovery of this is not done.
Commissioner Becker, may I address the concerns that Commissioner Byard has? I was the one who applied for all those permits you're speaking for on behalf of Dairy Ridge, so I have that knowledge.
Are you Dan?
I am Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Yeah.
If you'd like to come to the table.
I'll come up, yeah, if I have permission. So with respect to the 17 million and the 8 million, or the 19 million, I believe, is the actual appropriation, that had already been being pulled from the aquifer. It has been for several years. It just wasn't permitted. So in other words, when I came on board, the realization was that they were under the general permit, which allows for up to 5 million gallons of appropriation. So after, we doing the math, I informed David that we have to get that appropriation applied for. So that's already been withdrawn. So in terms of an additional, it's really not an additional. It's just to make things up to par. Then what will be additionally drawn is that 8 million you referred to for the additional cows, the expansion. So what we realized is that the trend, the downward trend that we've been seeing over the last 20 years, it can't continue. So there's irrigation wells that are pulling from that B1 aquifer, in particular like this Pivot 1 area, and that had been appropriated for 82 million gallons per year, okay? So the idea is to reduce that, and we reduced it down to 8 million, and then to put that additional over on the H1 aquifer, which is in the area of Pivot 3, and it's on the left side of that yellow line, if you will, the yellow dash. And so the amount of groundwater being pulled out of the B1 aquifer by Dairy Ridge is dramatically reduced. And then what we anticipate from that, because we just, one of the gentlemen earlier this morning mentioned that the observation well was put in just recently, relatively recently. We monitored the last growing season. But what we anticipate from the reduction of pulling from that B1 aquifer is at this point a leveling off. It's been a downward trend, and we anticipate a leveling off. The only way we're going to know that, of course, is with additional monitoring. And we'll look at the data, and the DNR does have that data. That data has been submitted for growing season 2023. So they've looked at that, and then we'll look at it again here shortly.
They have that data log information?
They have that information, that is correct, the DNR. It was submitted to them in November of 2023.
Why would the DNR yesterday tell me that the information they need to do their elevation thresholds is not available at this time?
Oh, okay, so that's on the elevation side of things. So they do have the water level data. The elevation thing is we have to get that, in order so they can put it on an elevation plane, we have to get that well surveyed, and we're in the process of doing that right now. We hope to have it surveyed by next week, actually.
And I do want to say that Mark did tell me that obviously that was not permitted, or your comment about it wasn't on the record, it wasn't permitted, the 82 million or whatever the number was. He did say that. I do agree with that. Can you tell me, can you describe to me, what's the number that will be drawn out of B1?
For Dairy Ridge's purposes?
What would be the permitted number?
Yeah, so it's, right now, there's a permit on what we call Dairy North. And that is, I'm gonna have to look that up.
I'd like the total, not just the irrigation. I want to know the number used from the.
Right, you're talking about the cows.
Cow consumption.
Yeah, okay. It's gonna take me a second to find that, but I do have it. I saw it last night. Here we go. So the total appropriation, so we have a couple irrigation systems pulling from that. It's the Dairy North, Dairy Ridge North, okay, pivot system. And that is the last allocated or reported use from that was 10 million gallons. Okay, so that was for 2023, or 2021, I'm sorry. I misspoke there, I'm looking too far on the top. 2023 was 15 million gallons, okay?
That's the use?
That's the usage.
Okay,
Yeah.
what I'm asking is what did you apply, what is the total number of gallons applied for from, let's call it?
They actually authorized for 64 million gallons per year, yeah. But in the last 3 years, the numbers are 10 million, 9 million, and 15 million. It was 21, 22, and 23. So they're not pulling that much. Then Pivot 1, what they are appropriated for, that's the 82 million gallons. And what they pulled in the last 3 years, starting with 2021, is 32, 16, and 38 million gallons per year. But we're reducing that down to the actual appropriation to 8 million gallons per year for pivot one. And then the dairy itself for the cows, you're talking 19 million gallons per year plus the 8 million gallons per year. So let's do the math. We have 25 million gallons and then 8 million gallons. And then if you want to say the appropriation is up to 64 million gallons for Dairy North. That's what's being pulled from that aquifer, or will be, or potentially could be, I should say. It's not actually being pulled, but those are the maximum amounts.
Dan? Any other questions right now?
Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
could ask, could you state your name? And your-
Oh, yes, it's Dan Whitney.
Is the groundwater technical submission being done now?
Yes. So the question was, is the groundwater technical review being done currently? And that is a correct statement. It is being done. What we did is we recently, I think it was last week or the week before, submitted the permit application to draw from the H1 aquifer for application to the area where Pivot 1 is, where the B1 aquifer resides. So,
Okay, thank you, Dan.
thank you.
Madam Chair, yeah. if I may.
Commissioner Nosko?
Yeah, Dan, so the numbers you're giving us for millions of gallons, is there actually something measuring that? Or is it due to the usage of the pivot, like a estimate on what that is? Is there something actually calculating those exact gallons? Or is it, we ran the pivot for this long, the pivot uses this many gallons per hour?
Yeah, in
How is
terms
that
of,
calculated?
right, in terms of a flow meter, I'm not aware of a flow meter being on those systems. With respect to how they calculate it, David, are you aware? Are they looking at the electric usage rates or run times?
Electric usage rates.
Okay. So, and that's a common way to.
I'm just curious if there's a better way to measure that so we know exactly how many gallons.
Oh, yeah, the exact way would be a flow meter.
Flow meters,
There's going, exact is in quotes, there's going to be some error range.
But
in it,
you're gonna have
but
a
plus or
lot
minus.
less range than
plus or minus
runtime on a
5%.
pump, though.
Yeah.
It's a lot different than runtime on a pump. Runtime on a pump is gonna be a lot more vague than an actual flow meter.
Providing that if things stay constant, for example, the pumping water level stays constant and the sprinkler heads are maintained, and then the runtime meter is pretty darn good. It's within about a 10% range. But, you know, everything, you have to there has to be maintenance on the system, and you have to double check the sprinkler heads you probably should do a maintenance on them every year.
Right, okay.
So.
Commissioner Byer?
Yeah, I'd like to understand how the data, maybe it made me think about this. Like on if it's a pivot or the data loggers, how is that calculated? There's that information is given to the team here and then they provide the data? Give me the flow of how it starts here and goes to who and goes where and then we get it, or you're presenting it.
Sure. So what we do, you know, just on the mechanics of it, we install the data logger. So the data logger was installed in that observation well, okay? And then it's electronic. It has a little computer chip in there.
To who does it go?
So it's just saved in that little, it's just like being its own little computer.
It doesn't go to like Minnesota Valley Irrigation or whoever?
No, nope, it's not transmitted or anything. It's just saved on that computer chip over that time frame, right? So if it's 3 months, it's collecting 3 months of data. Then what you have to do to get that data is you connect a computer to the cable that's coming out of the top of the well, and then you download that data, and you download it in what they call CSV files, and that's the actual file coming from that computer chip. That is what is then submitted to the DNR. And so they also want it tabulated in a spreadsheet, but you have to send the complete data set to the DNR.
Thank
so
you.
they can review that, yeah.
Questions? Other questions?
I do have a question. I would like to address Mr. Tomsky, if he would, could you come sit down for us here? Now, it's under my understanding that you're applying for a water appropriation permit from a separate aquifer and planning to pump it in for irrigation purposes only, or is that for dairy also?
Irrigation purposes.
Only, okay. Now, in good faith with you, what are the odds that that happens? On your word?
95%. We have an email from Mark Anderson yesterday stating that the robustness of that other aquifer farther away is quite good. And do you want to read those comments, Dan?
Yeah, so the question was, 'cause this is the question that came up, is if all of the current wells are pumping from the H1 aquifer, current, I'm not sure what that means, but not all the irrigation wells are, will there be enough water for the increase proposed by Dairy Ridge? And I think that means the increase onto the H1 aquifer. And Mark responded, initial review indicates sufficient water resource available for allocation to Dairy Ridge. Full groundwater technical review, this is the DNR, will provide additional certainty and identify any concerns. So that's where we just applied for that permit, and they, to answer one of the questions, they have submitted it to groundwater technical review.
So with what he's currently planning to use for the dairy and what he's planning to use on the B1 aquifer, is that what he's planned, is it sufficient to not drill that well? To not pump from that second well, or from the?
From the H1 aquifer?
Yes.
No, the reason being is we're taking water away from the pivot one appropriation.
Right, so they're really, for you to run that pivot, you have to drill the second well, or drill the next well and pump it over to run that pivot. So that pivot should not ever run unless the new well is drilled and pumped over?
I'm not drilling a new well.
Or pump from an old, okay, pump from an existing well, okay. The
Okay.
pipe system and the connection made.
It connects. It's already there.
The pipe system's in the ground already?
Yes. That was done 7 years ago, 8, 10 years ago.
And it hasn't been used?
Pardon?
Has it been used?
We've tested it to see if you would work last year, and it did. And then we filed for a permit this year.
Yeah, that's.
When the issue happened originally in '21, we knew as a team, we had to stop using water. So we used less water on Pivot 1. I mean, we did that. And Dairy North, we ran it way less than we would have wanted to do. We had our agronomy people meeting this last week. We're putting drought-resistant corn on those irrigated fields this year because we want to use less water still. These are all part of our practices. By the way, if you would like me to put a flow meter on that pivot, I'll be more than happy to do it, to nail it down to the last gallon. I have no objection to that. Using electricity bills is the standard in the industry, but I'll step it up if you wish.
I know, but I'm just looking at something more accurate because in this case, standard in the industry isn't this situation. This isn't a standard situation for the industry. So, we maybe have to go above and beyond here to cover ourselves.
Right,
And
but you have
that's
to
just my
understand as well that
opinion on
it's not standard in the industry for for any land producer just to quit using water. I mean, what we've done so far is I think demonstrates our intent and our good intentions. So, and we've been working with Mark Anderson through this whole process to make sure that, and by the way, if you pass this today, he still has to bless everything on the water usage, because he is the ultimate deity on this project.
Did you have something, Bob?
Can I go back to H1 for a second? The permitting application totals how many million gallons per year?
For the H1,
Yes.
It's,
in total?
it's about 90,
97?
yeah, right in that ball, yep, 97 million gallons per year,
Thank you.
correct.
So Madam Chair,
Yes.
we're in a drought right now, okay? How's it gonna affect these people if you guys decide to put those irrigators on April? You move them up a month.
So, yeah, that's a really good question on the drought. What's happening to our groundwater, right? And we monitor them quite extensively in north of the Staples area and in the north of the Wadena area. And we are seeing decreases in the water levels in the aquifer because of this dry period we've had now for 3 years. The decreases range anywhere from about this is in the aquifer, from about 6 inches to about 2 feet. So then what you do is you say, okay, is an effect? Yes, there's an effect. Is it an adverse effect? And that's when it comes to how much water is above that aquifer, right? If it's a confined aquifer, how far did the water rise above that aquifer? If it's 100 feet and you have a 2 feet decline due to drought conditions, you still have 98 feet of available water column above, in this case, if the pump was placed at the 100-foot level. So definitely the drought is having effect on water levels in the aquifer, but with respect to additional irrigation and things like that, yeah, it's a temporary, it's like a growing season type effect, and it happens right in the vicinity, if you will, or near the irrigation well itself. So, yeah, that's about, you're right, the drought is having an effect. Just like if we go back to normal or above normal conditions, we'll see those water levels rise. And we've seen fluctuations over the last 15 years of our monitoring with that water level. And the water levels this year they were this low back in 2014. It's the lowest. 2014 was kind of our threshold, and now we've reached that 2014 level.
So Dan, Dairy Ridge has already paid to have people's wells dropped. Okay, is that correct?
Drilled and their
Right?
their pipe. Yep.
And what was the reasoning behind that?
The reasoning behind that is because in that B1 aquifer, there was a declining trend, okay? And the declining trend was about 1 foot per year. Well, eventually, it caught up with where those pumps were placed. So maybe in 2021 or 2020, there was still 2 feet of water column above their pumps.
So these people have never had an issue with their wells until the water usage started to increase. Okay, so their wells started going dry, and somebody had to come in and redrill their wells.
The water usage didn't actually increase. What happens is the water usage was exceeding recharge to that aquifer. And so that's why we had our declining trend. So that's why it couldn't continue. And, you know, when David brought me in and I'm looking at this data, it was clear to him that this is not sustainable for the dairy operation. You're going to be out of water in 10 years. So that's why there had to be this concern of finding an alternative water source. But what's happening is recharge isn't equaling discharge. So it's being what we call in the industry, it's being mined. The water's being mined in that aquifer. So you have to decrease that mining activity, if you will, or you know, stop it altogether to cause a leveling out of that water level. And that's what we anticipate with taking that stress off of the B1 aquifer and adding it to the H1 aquifer, because the H1 aquifer is extremely robust, and we had that water level data since 1980 that shows that the water levels stay fairly steady. They fluctuate with the seasonal type pattern, but in terms of usage of that aquifer on an annual basis, we're not seeing that downward trend in the aquifer itself. So
The best thing for the aquifer is to allow this so that we can move on with these new permits
water permits and save millions of gallons of water usage. If I stay just like it is right now, nothing gets better.
Dan, if I may, that aquifer that's receding, do you practically know how many wells are pulling off of that, or do we know that, or?
In the B1 aquifer?
Yeah. Yep.
I do not. I
Okay.
did not do a count on that in terms of irrigation and domestic wells.
Just the blue stuff? So the blue stuff, that's all that's pulling off of this? And Dairy Ridge is the only one that's adjusting how they're gonna use their water usage?
Yeah, so.
Right, no, I'm just, hold on a second.
Yep.
So they're willing to bring water in from everywhere else, but I'm guessing that's not the only irrigated land around there that's helping that aquifer recede. So I mean, we have a plan there's a plan put in place to bring in water to give relief, and like, you guys were just making that comment, if you don't do this, don't bring in water from somewhere else, it is gonna keep receding, and, yeah, you will be able to water in 10 years, just like everybody else around there will, but we need to have a plan of action to let it rest and rebuild, and, as commissioners, we have to base things off facts and findings, and there's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of theories about, people, what they think could happen, but, I mean, we're trusting the data of the DNR, and like Mr. Thomas, you made earlier, none of this goes through until that all the data is from Mark Anderson in his office comes through and shows us where we're at. But I mean, it's the facts are showing us that, and findings are showing us that there's going to be a significant decrease in water usage out of there, and I'm just I'm having a hard time grasping if we're willing to decrease the use out of the one well, out of the one aquifer, why isn't there a little bit more support in that? And where's everybody else's stewardshipness about trying to reduce their water usage on it? And it's a large farm, and they understand how important it is to keep it running, and they're understanding the neighbors and surrounding people around it, that their livelihood is just as important as that farm is. So they're making the attempt to bring in extra water from a very robust, from what I understand, aquifer that's been tested for years and monitored for years. We've put in how many conditions, and Dairy Ridge has been more than willing to comply, and we've got how many sets of eyes looking at this as far as DNR level, county level. I mean, it's nothing like we're just turning a blind eye to all the information, but again, this decision has to be based on facts and findings, and I can't find a lot of facts that are proving that we should not go forward with this. Like I said, I mean, there's a ton of people pulling off that thing. We cannot, you cannot just put blame on one person. I know that the water usage is quite large, but to put that all on one entity, that they're draining that whole aquifer is incorrect in my opinion. But again, if this was a huge concern, the DNR and all their findings and tests and the test wells would not allow this at all. It would be, I mean, it just wouldn't be allowed. You can't remove a cattail without them knowing out of a lake. So the fact that they're okay with this and their well appropriations have been lowered, and we have a plan going forward that we're going to be proactive on this. It makes me want to ask, everybody else on that aquifer, what's your plan to help it out? I mean, you're pulling from it as well, and we have some nitrate concerns, which are large concerns. But again, without going around and going after each and every single household and testing their well and see if it's a 6-foot well or a 10-foot well, and maybe it's 5 feet away from a septic that's 100 years old and leaking into that well. Obviously, that could be a nitrate level in it. So, again, facts and findings are proceeding over emotion and speculation, and to deny it, in my opinion, and it goes to an appeal, I believe a court would overturn it just for the fact that the willingness to comply and the fact that it's, they're doing their best to pump in and they're lowering the water usage, which is what everybody wants. So that's where I'm at on that.
Okay, I do have some hands in the back of the room. If you stand up and come up here and state your name, we have to have your name stated, please.
Don Wienhold, a concerned neighbor. I'm wondering why they can't pull from an H1 aquifer without expansion. I don't understand why expansion has to go in hand with pulling from an H1 aquifer. It was stated that it's not the cows, it's the irrigation. I'd like to say that I think it's both, because when you're using just irrigation during the winter, your aquifer is recharging. When you include cows, the draw is all year round. Your aquifer don't have that chance to recharge like it does with just irrigation. I don't understand why expansion has to be put with drawing water from another location. The two don't make sense to me. I'm concerned about the aquifer, Mr. Thompson states, and yet I'm coming here with a proposal for an expansion. That's where I have the issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Isn't the public comment period?
I'm in charge today,
Sorry.
and I recognize them.
Jack Rohr. Yesterday, I was looking on the Minnesota Well Index, and according to that, there's pivots on the potato farms north of town that are drawing out of B1 aquifer. They pump a lot of water. So when I mean this aquifer is not just what they're showing, what's being shown on that map there. Like I said before, it's east, it's way out past 101. I think it's Township 101. All the way down 12, a few miles out, they're drawing out of the same aquifer. So that map is not showing what the well index shows. So.
Okay,
Thank you.
you.
Commissioner Becker, can we address those concerns?
Yes,
Okay. I do have a map, aerial map of the B1 aquifer that,
Is it the one you emailed me
I
yesterday?
did, yeah.
Okay,
The
and I
one
sent that to
emailed you
Jolene this
yesterday.
morning, hoping that you'd be able to get it this morning. Okay.
Can't get it. I do have a.
Oh, I did pass out copies though to all the commissioners, and I have more copies here though.
Okay.
It's this stuff you're looking at, right?
Yeah, it's the one that shows the H1 and B1 aquifer.
No.
I do have a thumb drive that would
I
have
have
this.
this stuff here, right?
Yeah, that's the cross
And
section.
this?
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, so all the commissioners,
Thumb drive won't work? Okay.
okay,
Not
so
accessible in county.
there's the 3 pages
Okay.
you gave me. And then this was what I handed this morning, the 3 sheets on regular 8.5 by 11. Do you need a copy, David? Yes, there's here.
Thank you.
Do you need one, Denise?
For public record, probably.
Okay. I emailed it to Jolene, but I'll give you a copy here because
It's election day, we're swamped, so.
Oh, understood.
So the commissioners have a copy of these?
Yes.
3? Yep. Excellent. Okay, yeah, if we just look at what it says, figure 7, and it's the extent, distribution, depth, and thickness of the B1 buried sand aquifer. You'll see Long Prairie there, and you'll see kind of this yellow, light yellow, green portion. And so these yellow and green and a little bit of brown to the upper northwest there, or northwest, are where the B1 aquifer occurs. And the gentleman's point of that, the potato fields that he mentioned north of Long Prairie, yeah, there is a B1 aquifer up there, right? The B1 aquifer, but you can see there's a disconnect between the B1 aquifer that Dairy Ridge is pulling from and the B1 aquifer that perhaps the gentleman was referring to as the what the potato fields are pulling from. So they're not They're not connected. So the B1 aquifer is like I'll call it just like a hodgepodge of sand deposits. And it's not like this pancake geology stratigraphic, where it's layer on top of layer on top of layer, and those layers extend several miles in each direction. So the potato fields are, if you will, drawing from groundwater that's separate from what Dairy Ridge is pulling from, even though they're defined as the B1 aquifer. The B stands for Brower, where Browerville Formation is really where that comes from.
Madam Chair, if I may now?
Sure.
I know, going back on what Commissioner Denny had mentioned, I'm sure this B1 aquifer that Dairy Ridge is drawing from, there are probably other pivots drawing from that same aquifer, correct? Or no?
I believe so. I just haven't looked at it and who else.
Not the potato farm, but I mean even in close proximity.
In close proximity, yeah. If you look where, on the map where it says 287, right? The number 287. In that portion, that section of B1 aquifer, yeah, I assume there's other irrigation wells, but I'm not 100% sure.
Right, okay, and that's fine, that's fine. And I'd like to address the public here, everyone online and the commissioners sitting here. In a dairy this size, it's a large dairy. They consume a lot of water, they produce a lot of manure. That's just the way it is. There's two things that we don't regulate as a county on a dairy that size. We don't regulate water usage, and we don't regulate manure storage or manure application or management. That's not our job here in Todd County. With a dairy this size, this doesn't go true for everything, but we don't regulate those two things. So at some point, we got to look at what do we regulate, and is Mr. Tomsky and Dairy Ridge, are they actually complying with what we regulate with our ordinance? And I'm on board with Tim on this one, because I don't think, it's not our job. If everybody in the public has a concern, complaint about what's going on with water usage or manure management or manure storage, you need to be contacting PCA or DNR. That is not our position here. That's all I have.
But my biggest thing, Lou, is if somebody drives by and sees a violation out there, and it's a Friday, you think MPCA is gonna drive down here from Brainerd? Hell no.
I know they won't.
No. So then, who deals with it?
Commissioner Beckers.
Yeah, I just wanted to also piggyback on, at least comment back to everyone on the, on Commissioner Denny's statement. To say that the DNR is okay with this, in my weekend, this morning discussions with the DNR, this B1 aquifer permit is not approved. It is not approved, okay? So for anybody, unless Mark Larson's off on his rocker or something, I'm guessing, I'm saying it's not approved. And the fact that, if you talk about the fact and the findings, we don't have the facts and the findings on what the the safe yield of that aquifer is being. We don't have it. That won't be done for some time, is my understanding. Could be months. And so, absent of those facts and findings, your decision is, my decision is hard to make. I don't have the facts and the findings is what I'm trying to say here. And the DNR is telling me they won't have them for 4 to 6 months. They're waiting on data logger information to get the elevation thresholds. So, thank you.
As I look at it, Commissioners, we're going to have to make a decision today, so I would ask if there's no more discussion or questions.
I have a little bit yet, and sorry, I keep going, but to addressing you there, Bob, the thing is, right now, if we don't make a decision and we let it go, this passes with no conditions. Right now, we've got an opportunity to put conditions on it and make sure things go the right way, correct, Adam?
That's absolutely right.
No, we have to make a decision.
You have to make a decision, but you
If we
have,
don't, then it goes
it's
forward.
automatic. Yeah. Commissioner Becker, can I just add a comment in there too? Commissioner Naska and Byers' points. You're right, the county doesn't have the jurisdiction over the groundwater or the permitting of the feedlot program. But what we do have control over is holding the project until those things get accomplished. We absolutely have the ability to do that, and that's what the condition says here. And I'm telling you, we will not issue the land use permits for construction of anything until we can receive those permits from Dairy Ridge and verify them on the backside with whoever the permitting authority, whether that be MPCA or the DNR or any other permits that may be required out there. We absolutely do have control over that. So the concern of not having all that data right now, completely valid, but we're gonna make sure that all those pieces of the puzzle are in place before this moves forward beyond this decision here today.
Yes, there's, if you'd come up, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly in response to Commissioner.
Repeat your name,
Oh,
please.
sorry. Jessie Sagi. Briefly in response to Commissioner Naska's comments that you don't have the ability to control the manure or the water permits. That's true. But as a county, you do have the ability and obligation to follow the statute, which delegates water to domestic use first and dairy third, and also to make sure that those findings, those 9 findings under 5.05 in your zoning ordinance are met. And that does have to do, again, with surface water and groundwater, including sustainability and the nitrate concern, on top of the traffic concerns and infrastructure. And so if those things don't pass, you don't have to send it to the DNR to consider the manure and the water permits, because you have to find those findings under those 2 things first. And you can deny the cup under those 2 things. Thank you.
May I address that back,
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
So I do not consider myself an expert in hydrology or in pollution control. So I honestly, in good faith, cannot make a decision based on those things. I can't say whether there's enough water or not. Just like you mentioned, we don't have that information. We don't know. So based on something we don't know, it's hard to make the exact point you're saying. Is it a problem? I mean, is it going to be a problem? I can't say that.
One more comment, Madam Chair.
Okay. There's a new one.
My findings of fact are the fact Dairy Ridge has already paid for, or maybe got reimbursed by the state of Minnesota, to already lower wells for our constituents that reside within Dairy Ridge. That's a fact, okay? That's not imaginary. That's not guessing how much water is in that aquifer. It's a fact. They've already paid to lower wells within this aquifer.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes.
my question is, Adam, you presented this board action today and I only see 6.
Right.
But Commissioner Naska had you read off like 15.
Yep, I'll have to
So to
update
me,
that.
this is an incorrect document.
It's my responsibility to bring the recommendation of the planning commission. That's the recommendation of the planning commission. Those other conditions were the ones that we reviewed at the previous work session. So when the motion's made, whatever way it goes, we'll have to just verify, clarify what the conditions are of it, or if it's denied, what the facts are supporting denial, and then that will have to be updated based on that, which is recorded in the record.
So should this document have had listed all of them?
Well, again, it's my responsibility to bring the planning commission's recommendation to the board.
Okay.
So that's where this is coming from. And then, well, yeah, I had everything else so we could talk about and add conditions. The board has the authority to amend, alter, whatever conditions based on the findings.
Commissioners? Any other questions?
I know we've conditioned the hell out of this thing, but I'd like to add another.
Okay.
I would like to see, on these wells permitted by well appropriation permits, by water appropriation permits, I would like to see flow monitoring devices and have those numbers reported.
So I'd be more than happy to do that. That would be pivot Terry North and pivot one.
Yeah, so,
Just so I understand.
actually, what, Commissioner Noska, are you for the B1 aquifer, the H1 aquifer, or both of them?
Well, I would say both. I would say.
Okay, so that would be.
Everything that's being permitted to Dairy Ridge should have a flow monitoring device and be
Okay.
reported in some way. I don't know how to word that, but, how.
Every pivot on every field?
I think, could it be the wells that would be monitored, not necessarily the pivot itself?
So we're talking 3 wells right now.
Okay.
Yep. So, yep.
Okay, my comment back, and I'm looking to John here maybe for a little advice, is are we overreaching the scope of the request of the application, looking at monitoring devices on irrigation when the request is related to the dairy operation?
Madam Chair, if I may respond directly. No, this is a reasonable condition. If upon review it's determined that
Sure.
it's an overreach, we'll find that out, but
Okay.
my opinion is it's appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
And if I may, chances are really high that the DNR will make that a condition of the permit.
Well,
Yeah. And
As
I have
they
seen that.
should,
What's that?
as they should.
Yeah, and I've seen that in the past with other permit approvals, that they're approved based with the condition that a flow meter has to be put on. So I'm
Thank you.
pretty confident that
Okay, thank
Mr.
you.
Anderson will do that. But if not, David has mentioned he'll do it.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioners? Otherwise, I'd be looking to move forward.
Madam Chair, are you looking for,
I'm looking for to be able to move forward a motion
okay,
or
well,
some sort.
with the findings of the planning commission and like Adam stated earlier, nothing gets issued until the facts and findings come back from DNR reports. I will make the motion to approve this UP with all of the conditions, the ones listed and the ones that were given by the board.
Okay.
Madam Chair, can I just clarify that quick? You mean the ultimately 16 conditions, now we removed the Township Road one and added the one, so those that reviewed earlier minus the Township Road and add the flow monitoring condition, those total of 16 conditions?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay, we have a motion. And is there a second?
I will second the motion.
Motion by Denny, seconded by Noska. Further discussion? We will do a roll call vote. Denise, you want to reread that motion to make sure that
We are presenting Dairy Ridge LLC request for CUP, motion by Commissioner Denny, second by Commissioner Noska, which includes all 16 listed and read conditions.
Okay, thank you.
And the roll call will be Commissioner Denny,
Yes.
Commissioner Noska,
Yes.
Commissioner Byers,
No.
Commissioner Newman,
No.
Commissioner Becker.
No. Okay. With that, the motion was denied.
Motion has failed, yes,
Motion's failed.
with a 3-2 vote.
Vote, thank you.
The motion to deny now?
No, it fails then.
It just failed?
No,
Yeah,
it's
just
a motion to approve. It failed.
It's done. Failed.
It failed. We'll take a 5-minute before we go. We'll continue with the meeting then.
I saw that they were open. I didn't know what happened.
Okay.
All right, good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Couple of board action forms here to present in front of you today. The first one is to request to increase office support specialist to a full-time equivalent. Some background. At the Commissioners' work session on February 20th, 2024, discussion was held about the need to increase the current office support specialist 2 position from a part-time, which is a 32-hour week, to a full-time 40-hour week. The increase in the hours will allow for additional office support for new public health grant funding. Your options are to approve the increase in the OSS 2 position from 32 hours a week to 40 hours a week, or to not approve. It's our recommendation you go ahead and approve the OSS 2 position from 32 hours a week to 40 hours a week. This is a budgeted increase that will come from the grants from the state of Minnesota.
Okay. Is there a motion for the increase of the office support specialist from 32 hours a week to a 40-hour week?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Noska. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Byers. Discussion. In this, when we went through personnel, this person was already receiving the insurance benefits and so forth, so all we're doing is adding the extra hours.
Correct.
Okay. Having no other further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Thank you.
I'm gonna move down so you guys can have the mics. I'll share them, let the girls take
Thank you.
Morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Amy.
Morning, thanks.
All right, our next board action form is for Energy Assistance Program delivery for federal fiscal year 2025. Some background. The critical role of service providers in the administration and delivery of the Energy Assistance Program, also known as EAP, requires Minnesota Department of Commerce to request early notice of possible EAP service provider changes for 2025, federal fiscal year 2025. The Department of Commerce requires a written letter no later than March 31st, 2024, clearly stating the county's intent to administer and deliver EAP for federal fiscal year 2025. Your options are to approve the notification to the Minnesota Department of Commerce, Todd County's intent to administer and deliver the Energy Assistance Program for federal fiscal year 2025, or to not approve. It's our recommendation that you go ahead and approve the notification to the Minnesota Department of Commerce, Todd County's intent to administer and deliver Energy Assistance Program for federal fiscal year 2025. With that, I have Amy here to offer some statistics of services received in this year.
That's correct. I did hand out this numerical sheet that you can all look at if you'd like to. The only 2 important changes were that the last 2 years we had a water assistance program. We did not have that this year. And this is the first year in 3 that the funding is back to the pre-COVID levels. And what I thought was interesting is during the COVID years, those 3 years, they would increase amounts and increase the SMI. And so after all of that, when we came down to it, I see that the primary heat average award from 23 to 24 was very similar. So I was a little curious about how that all happened, but so this year we do have an increase in our applications of 1.2%, and the primary heat grant is up from 563 to 571, and we have, as of today, awarded $697,972 in primary heat. And primary heat is the award that the household receives when they first apply. So that can be anywhere now from $200 to $1,400. And then we also have our crisis money, which is if you're a senior, 60 or above, you can get assistance with a connected utility without being past due or behind. If you're under the age of 60, then you would need to be in a disconnect status. And any of those households can get assistance if their oil or propane reaches 20%. So that is where the difference, they have decreased that amount to $600 this year. And at times during the COVID, it was as much as $3,000. So as you can see, that has, there's still a big difference there because the crisis amount that we've awarded this year, even though the household numbers are similar, is $128,199.96. And last year, as of this time, it was $200,038.77.
Okay. Questions? The water program only went for 2 years. Did the state cut it out, or?
Yes, it was some federal dollars that the Minnesota Department had received and passed it down to us, and it wasn't intended to continue.
It was through the COVID years.
It's through the COVID years? Yeah. Okay. Okay. If there's no questions, I'll ask for a motion for the assistant program for fiscal year 2025.
So moved.
Motion by Byers, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Noska. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
And approved. Thank you.
Thank you. We will be bringing that contract back when it does come in for final signature.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, the last board action form I have for you is the care coordinator job description. Some background. At the Commissioners' work session on February 20th, 2024, the care coordinator job description was reviewed. The proposed new care coordinator job description would eliminate the need to post for both the registered nurse and the social worker when a care coordinator position is open. Your options are to approve the care coordinator job description or to not approve it. It's our recommendation that you go ahead and approve the care coordinator job description. With this, if approved, and if it would move forward, we would eliminate, and I would bring that back at the next board meeting, the RN job description, because there would not be a need for that one any longer. We would still need to keep the social worker one because we do have social workers that work outside of the care coordination position.
Okay, and I know Nellie has worked a lot on this also through the personnel meeting and so forth, so. If there's not any questions, I'd ask for a motion.
Make the motion to approve.
Denny for a motion for approval, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Thank you. Next is 13 would be commissioners. And who's going to be reading that?
I'll read that in,
Okay.
Madam Chair. After hearing multiple townships stating that they were unaware of the Planning Commission's agenda and were not notified, township meetings can happen at any time of the month, and to get township concerns or no concerns is a challenge. And when the Planning Commission only meets the first Thursday of the month, only depends on when the agendas are mailed out, and normally it's a 10-day requirement, okay? Members of the Todd County Board of Commissioners have asked Planning and Zoning multiple times at board meetings, what is the township's opinion on actions being taken, and response has been nothing yet from the township, or has been nothing yet from the township yet. when talking to townships, notification came after their township meeting, so it's hard for them to act. They're a 3-member board. And I had the pleasure of going up and representing my constituents in Southwest West Union up at a Douglas County Planning and Zoning meeting, and it was really interesting and enlightening to find that the townships do respond to the Planning Commission, either in writing or in person. So it would be a recommendation that the Todd County Board of Commissioners approve the following by motion: that all actions taken by the Todd County Board of Commissioners will have a written concerns or no concerns from the all affected townships within the county before action will move forward, as the county board is the final decision-making body on zoning matters. So, thoughts?
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
to make that work, shouldn't the townships have to move their meetings so it works with the planning and zoning, so it falls after we have our meetings, we send the agenda out? Shouldn't they be moving their meetings?
I believe, and you can ask John the same question, but I believe we don't have the right to set a township when they have a meeting to the county. They're their own independent
So if
body. Correct, John?
Madam Chair, that's correct. The board can put more process, more procedures, and more restrictions on itself, but it can't dictate what the townships do.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Is it something we could recommend? You know, maybe we recommend they move their meetings till after we put that agenda out, so they can actually get a look at that agenda before, I mean, just a recommendation, just an email to the townships, just saying.
Versus a resolution, it's a recommendation.
Well, no, this resolution, I mean, it's fine, but it'd be nice to keep the process rolling.
Right, but my townships meet any time of the month, okay? It could be the end of the month, it could be the first Tuesday of the month.
Okay, so they have a variable date then?
So, trying to work with the townships, if somebody comes in for a permit, I think what planning and zoning's gotta say is, hey, you know, first, you go to your township and get approval, then come back to the office. Or, you know,
In writing, though.
in writing.
I think we need
And then
it
come
in
back to the
writing.
office and go for the permit, because
Yeah.
that way, that process will be followed. The constituent has to do a little homework.
So is that the motion, to make the constituent go to the township first? Is that the motion?
Well, we could make it that.
We're just saying that we want from planning
you're
and
just-
zoning a written copy, and I don't think it makes a difference if the constituent goes to the township and gets that written copy,
Or the county.
or the county does. We just need a written copy of the township's feelings before it gets here. You know, before we have to approve or deny it.
So in theory, we're kind of putting the cart before the horse currently.
Yes,
We want to put the cart behind the horse
yes.
going forward. Because we're getting these requests and then the township says, hey, we don't even know anything about this?
Yeah.
Right.
Am I missing?
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
So the interesting thing, the night I was up in Douglas County, Orange Township got theirs the night before the planning commission meeting. Well, they had already met.
So they
So
meet.
it was that 10-day window, and, you know, mail right now is, who knows? So,
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
being that majority of the people that come to the planning and zoning meetings for their CUP are in attendance to speak or state their claim, I guess my recommendation is that they go to the township, do the work, they get the approval from the township, what they're doing, and then they bring it to planning and zoning.
Yeah.
We don't need to create more work for our county to do stuff. If they want this, they do the steps.
And I'm fine with that. I just want it in writing.
Sure.
So before it comes here, we know what the township's feelings are. We don't have to be taking something out of a condition at this level.
I can tell you that in my discussions with in the last week or 2, 3 weeks, whatever, AMC, Traverse County does this, Winona County does this. Traverse County Commissioner gave me a list of multiple counties that do this similar process.
Sure.
I don't think it's anything that's not already being done in other, and I will certainly send you the list of the different counties that are doing it if you wanna.
And that letter could be
But, yeah,
Obtained by the constituent and then mailed
Put the burden,
to the Adams office or.
Put the burden on the person getting the permit that
want
we have to see the township feelings on this in writing, signed, dated, and then we know what their feelings are.
Yeah,
works for me.
that's fine. So are we gonna edit this then?
Yeah, I think we better.
Yeah,
edit
that
it.
sounds good.
Mr.
Okay.
Danny, how would you like?
You ready?
I don't know what
Did you get all that?
Yeah.
I'll ask for a motion, then he can state it in a motion, correct?
Yeah. I'll make the motion that the applicant must obtain a written letter from the township stating approval or disapproval of their request for CUP? Or how do you want CUP or, I mean,
Nope, that's fine.
okay.
Adam, any comment? Do you understand what we're doing and saying? Yeah, absolutely.
You're saying a written request to the township to the planning and zoning board.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Okay. First, I can assure you we're sending the notices as the ordinance requires. I know that there, like Commissioner Newman had said, the mail is a question mark nowadays. But the requirement is that it goes to the chair and the clerk of that township. So what's happening is that there's other supervisors that are not getting that notice. There's miscommunication within the township. There could be a number of reasons of things that are happening. So in order to, as an effort to correct that at the start of this year, we've already just sent the notice to every township supervisor, clerk, chair, everybody. So there's no questions, everybody's getting it. I don't know, similar to our plating process, we require that the township, that they go to a regular township meeting and present that preliminary plat prior to us accepting that application. And I feel like based on Commissioner Denny's points there, that's kind of what we're looking at here. I think we're looking at an ordinance amendment that needs to happen rather than a board action so that it's in our ordinance that is a requirement of the application.
Yes.
Adam, can't both happen? Can't we process this as saying we don't want it coming here unless we've got a township letter in the process of doing that ordinance or not, John?
Madam Chair, I would feel more comfortable rather than the board imposing conditions and obligations on an applicant, rather having it be, yes, addressing the ordinance itself, which the board has the authority to do, or requiring the board to have certain findings in such matters, which is different from requiring, in my mind, different from requiring an applicant to do certain things.
And I get the challenge here with these township meetings. It's nearly, you can't publicly notice it and make everybody happy. There's just no possible way. I penciled out every township meeting on a monthly calendar one time, and you can't do it. So I get the request here, so you have that information from the township. I can support it either way, whether that be an ordinance amendment and we put that burden on the applicant from the start, or the Planning and Zoning Office spends time just making sure we get comments from the township. On one hand, it's a lot easier for us to just make sure that that date and signature is in that application, that they met with the township. Whether we get comments from the township after that point, I don't know. It's up to the township. At least we know that applicant was at that township meeting, presented their application.
Well, we have the annual township meeting coming up
Sure
next
do.
month, right?
And
In
ironically,
April.
it's the same night as a planning commission meeting. Yeah, so we haven't noticed that yet. This maybe is a different topic for outside the meeting, but we're either gonna have to, I won't be able to attend the township meeting, or we'll have to move it for that 1 month, which is a potential option.
So, I mean, can someone tell me the most efficient way to do it? That's what I wanna do. I don't wanna give me the most efficient way to do this, and then let's
Do it.
vote on it or do it. Please, somebody just, most efficient. What is it?
I haven't had a lot of time to think about this, not knowing that this was on the agenda. So it's tough for me to answer that fully. I think that anytime there's information needed, it should always be the burden of the applicant. So I think in that case, the most efficient, cleanest route is to place the burden on our applicants, or when they apply, that they have done their research with that township. And again, it's gonna depend whether the township gives us comments or not after that, but at least we know that that applicant was at that township meeting and presented his application or her application.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
So I think we're looking at a potential very quick ordinance amendment here to include that as a requirement. It probably wouldn't be the worst idea to just do the same for our variance applications. I know that those don't come to the county board, but why not make the process similar for all these public type applications?
Madam Chair, if I may say, I think it's just a procedure. As with our liquor license, gambling license, that's not our responsibility. That individual that's applying for that license goes to that township board. That township board signs off, then the application comes to me. The application goes to the sheriff, the application goes to the attorney, back to me, back to the board. The applicant has to be responsible for some of this.
And I agree, because otherwise we run into the timeline. Because you only have so many days to get this done,
That's a great point.
and that takes that away from our timeline then.
If they want it, they do the work. Let's go.
Okay.
Okay. Do we need to come back to another meeting with anything? Because we really need to, if we're gonna make quick ordinance amendments, we can get those on whatever upcoming planning commission agenda we can to make those. I think that's probably a one-meeting process to get that
Should we come to
through.
a work session?
We sure can. I'd be
Okay,
happy to
let's
throw
bring
this
it
on
to
a work session.
At the
can
next meeting.
probably
We'll
have some
that
proposed
discussion at
language
the
ready to
work
go.
Session.
But this
and then
has to
bring-
happen.
It does.
It's
I
gotta
think we're
happen.
all in agreement. Something has to take place.
Just to confirm we're all on the same page, that next meeting is March 19th. I'll have this on that work session and probably have some quick language drafted for you to review. We obviously have to get it to public hearing, go through the planning commission process, but make it quick and easy at that point to get to the end goal here.
Okay,
And like Commissioner Byers said, there's multiple counties out there already doing it.
yeah.
Yeah, oh, and that would be great. So if I need to contact any of them, I'll reach out to them.
Okay,
Okay.
then I will table, is it 13? My thing is, until, at a later date, until we get something done here, hopefully.
Got it. Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Very well, thank you.
Then we'll go into standing reports. Auditor Treasurer. Don't even talk to me today, right?
I have nothing to say. It's an election day. Go out and vote. That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you. John, County Attorney,
I would echo that. Just everybody go out and vote.
okay. Lou,
Same.
Commissioner
Everybody go
Noska?
out and vote.
Well, we've been working, wellness team's been working hard on employee-type programs, looking at blood drives, looking at vouchers for not new employees, but vouchers for employees. Like a year ago, we did some T-shirts, and so we're working with another county entity that would be doing this business with, so that's great. Generate more revenue for the county businesses. What else has been going on? Wellness. Sorry. Bear with me.
Okay.
Been a long day, right? We met with Todd County Watershed, Long Prairie Watershed this week too, last week, I'm sorry. That was a good meeting. I got to go to TRICAP meeting over Little Falls. It was quite the eye-opener. I think maybe Barb and I discussed it. There's some things going on with TRICAP that they need to have to work on their finances. And I think that's it, sorry.
Okay. Commissioner Newman,
Yes, Madam Chair. On 23rd at Personnel, 27th, I made it almost through to Personnel, ended up in ER. I have blood clots in my upper right, lower right, and left lung. They're trying to dissolve them. So I'm just happy I'm here.
okay, Commissioner Denny.
Nothing to report. That's significant. The board, yeah, I agree with everybody else. Go vote today.
Okay. Well, we had several personnel, I think 3 personnel meetings within the last 2 weeks. We've been doing a lot of job descriptions and reading through them with Nellie. and doing a fantastic job with it. We did have a facility meeting. I attended the Region 5 meeting, and we also had the Region 5 road meeting going on, so. And thank you, and with that, we will recess. Yes.
Under statute 15.99, when the conditional use permit is denied, voting no have to be released on the record. And so I don't want that to miss all of the.
Just, if you want to come up here, it's really hard to hear you.
I'll let your county attorney provide you guidance or.
Yes.
Advice, but under statute 15.99, when a vote on a resolution made on a motion to approve is denied, the failure to pass, those voting against the motion must state on the record the reasons why they oppose it for any potential appeal. And I think additionally, potentially that has to be in writing as well, and that all has to be done within that 60-day deadline. So I don't want anything missed as far as that request and the denial being placed on the record as far as the people voting against it.
Okay. John, recommendations.
Jesse, can you run that statute by me?
0.99.
15.99.
Yeah, and it's sub B and C.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'll read into the record what Ms. Sagi brought to the board's attention. Minnesota Statute 15.99, subdivision 2, parent B. When a vote on a resolution or properly made motion to approve a request fails for any reason, the failure shall constitute a denial of the request, provided that those voting against the motion state on the record the reasons why they oppose the request. A denial of a request because of a failure to approve a resolution or motion does not preclude an immediate submission of a same or similar request. Paragraph C, or Part C, talks about a written option, and I'll read it in full. Except as provided in paragraph B, if an agency other than a multi-member governing body, which I think this is, so I'm not sure that paragraph C applies. So, and just to give some context here, Chapter 15 is entitled State Agencies in General. So these are rules that apply to governmental entities. I would defer to the board, now being aware of 15.99 and its apparent application to this board. I do think that 15.99 sub 2 parent B does require those voting no to state the reasons why.
John, can we do that now, or would you like to?
And I don't know if John would have time to look into this, but I think that the courts have also determined that as long as it's done within the 60 days, the board can reconvene and make a written, so basically, if no reasons are given on the record by those county board members voting against the resolution, because it's not entirely clear, if we want time to basically think, like, write it nicely. At the next meeting, the board can adopt written reasons for voting down the resolution to approve the CUP. But that has to be done within that March 12th deadline still. So I don't know if short answer wants to be given on the record today, and a written response adopted at a special meeting. I'll leave that to your county attorney.
And these are listed under CUP guidelines.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's the guidance of the board.
It's not normal board. You vote no, you don't always have to state why.
Madam Chair, if I may clarify with Ms. Sagi, you're saying the subdivision 3?
It was just a court of appeals, or a district court decision that determined that since in that instance, the board didn't put it on record at that meeting, but they came back at the next meeting, which was in that 60-day deadline still, and put it on the record at that. And the court said that was qualified.
That was adequate.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't know if that case law has been overturned or challenged.
Because district court case law is persuasive and not precedential, and because the plain meaning of the statute is that the commissioners voting no state the reason, I would be more comfortable today making a record of why each commissioner who voted no did so. So then we're just done with it today.
Okay. Okay, we will, do I have to have a motion or anything, John, or we can just go ahead?
No, my reading of this says that it's a denial provided that those voting against the motion state on the record the reasons why they oppose it. So I don't think it's valid until those reasons are put on the record. So I don't think we need any motion. I think it's part of the vote
Okay, so we'll
itself.
bring back the motion for denial of the Dairy Reach CUP. And I would ask Commissioner Byers that voted no on it, the reasons.
Sure. I voted no on that motion as that there is not enough information that's been provided by the DNR as far as elevation thresholds for that aquifer and the safe yield aspect as to how much that aquifer can understand or can take.
Okay, Commissioner Newman?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mine is the health, safety, and welfare of my constituents. The wells have been lowered already. That is very concerning to me, and they've been paid, like I said, they've been paid once before to lower them. And again, not enough information.
And this Commissioner Becker, I voted against it because I do not believe we have the correct and right information from the DNR. The comment was made that the DNR has the last call on it, and I do believe the county should have the last call on protecting our constituents and their water supply, including the city of Long Prairie. Is that sufficient, John?
I believe so, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will recess until March 19th. Thank you.
We'll take a short break.
Yes, and then we'll go into work session.
Oh, I thought she was right. She's so short, sometimes I can't look at her, and I'm like,
Couldn't see her.
Where is she?
where'd she go?
Peek over the edge. We're out of coffee.
You guys are all amped up then, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
I didn't know she was doing that.
When is it? Oh, yeah. Tuesday, 12, okay.
Okay, are we ready?
You got it, boss.
All right, we will start.
Okay.
Madam
Before you-
Chair, please announce that you're opening the work session.
Oh, we are opening the work session.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
The item we have before you for the solid waste department is the CAP grant bid review. Bids opened and have been reviewed. The apparent low bidder is High Tech Construction. After a meeting of the project committee, a proposal was drafted as attached. The solid waste department would like to discuss this proposal. Pending feedback at work session, we will bring this to the March 19th board meeting to award the project. Chris McCon is online also, so he's available for questions. And Lauren is here to assist. He's been an important part of our getting us through this bid process and also assisting us in equipment purchasing and things like that. The sheet before you is our breakdown of what our funds look like, where they're going, allocated monies and that type of thing. So as we work through this bid sheet, the committed funds for the total budget was $8,307,210. The bid opening project amount was $7,839,767.90. The total project cost itemized there is with the project costs along with Stantec's design fees and equipment needed, an estimated cost of equipment needed to facilitate that new building. The total budgeted cost is $10,170,656.43. The current gap is $1,863,446. The additional funding sources, as we outlined below, is coming through our Fund 51 source that we have budgeted money through the next 3 years. And also is up for discussion is the use of the ARPA fund, which we had discussed along with our safety, solid waste committee meeting as well. So the remaining gap difference, if we use everything that's addressed on this form, is a $13,446 remaining gap.
Excuse me, Mike, how much are you using out of ARPA funds?
It was discussed possibly using 1 million.
1 million. Oh, I see it right here. Okay. And then you're borrowing from the county also. It's hard to see on this.
That was on top.
Yeah, I can see it.
General county, general fund loan.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And I believe that was 20 years, Denise, was that correct?
And that was at 0% interest?
I do
Or
not
was there a
believe
percentage?
I don't believe it was set.
It was
No,
not set?
there's, I recall the resolution specified that it would be zero interest for 20 years. And it was a minimum payment back of $50,000 per year. So if we wanted to, we could pay more back per year.
Right. Questions, commissioners? So I guess I gotta look at Denise,
I'm
go ahead,
sorry.
Bob.
So we are gonna loan ourselves.
Well, it's not ourselves. We offer a loan from the general fund. They are an enterprise fund.
Yeah.
They make revenue, we do not. So by them being able to make revenue, they've borrowed money from us before, they pay it back to us, and then they have money at hand.
0%.
It's been 0%. If they ask for any or more money, we did talk in finance that they would have to up the ante and they would have to give us a percentage, because right now I'm currently making 5% or better. So, but this was established like 3-4 years ago whenever we
It
started
was,
this.
it was a long,
A
yeah.
long, long time ago.
When we, actually, interest rate was next to nothing.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yep.
As far as if you were reaching for my direction on ARPA funding.
Yes, yes, please.
We just updated this yesterday, so we would know. We do have some projects that are completed. We did the court case backlog of $178,000, that's been completed. We did the rooftop air handling unit, that project is completed. We did the solid waste staffing shortage, that was through Doherty, that's been completed and shut off. Sheriff's Department, court security, mental health emergency calls, that amount has been completed. Attorney and Todd Wadena Corrections Office remodel has been completed. Eligibility worker, that's projected to end helping pay that wage at the fiscal year end of 12/31/2024. So we still have the rest of this year to pay for that. Micro purchases, those are completed and those were minimal, those were like 36,000. Annex 2 rooftop air handling units is completed. The subsidized food meal program, that was at 10,000. They only used 2954 and we dissolved that. So that's done. Broadband survey, that has been completed and paid. Todd County Historical Society asked for 6,500, that was completed. Justice Roof Center rooftops was obligated 1.5, came in at 1.4. So we do have to offset that money. That is not, we don't have the final numbers of our bookkeeping done on that. The demolition landfill, that's another one we have to, because we allocated an obligated 700,000 and the cost was only 265,000. So we do have to shore those numbers up with Chris and Mike so that we can make those complete. Boardroom technology has been completed, class and comp study is completed, the amount that we're obligated to use for that. So when it's all said and done, we have some other small things that we paid for, the Hilltop Kitchen Oven, CTC grant support, the SciTech broadband support. We were obligating 3.1 million. Our actual expenditures are 2.5. Again, there's a couple of those that we have to shore up that we'd be getting money back, like that around 400,000 from that landfill. But the available funds for obligation right now is 1.599. And that is not including your rock wall project. So keep in mind you're opening
We
those
have
bids tomorrow. 1.599688.
Right, and that's why we had this brought to work session today, because we don't get our bids in until tomorrow. We'll be opening the bids on the rock wall.
Right.
And that has to play part of this into this.
Right.
Then we can recall.
Yeah. So after tomorrow, we'll have a lot better understanding of where we're actually sitting.
So, between the rock wall and this, we're gonna pretty much go through the ARP fund.
Yes.
It'll be
Yeah,
in the
it'll be
200,000 or less, or probably, or maybe, whatever.
Yeah, and it all has to be
Completely.
spent
Okay.
or
Yes,
obligated
by the
by
end of
December
2024.
of
Yes,
this
by the
year.
end of this year, we have to have everything obligated. Not spent, we have till 2026 to spend it,
Gotta
but
put in bucket.
we have to obligate it. Has to be by resolution obligation, so it has to be committed.
Okay,
Can't just put it in a bucket.
Thank you.
okay. So at this point, I guess you should plan on bringing it to the board meeting on the March 19th, and we might have to do some jiggling depending upon what we find out tomorrow. Yes, Lauren?
If I may, Chris, you might want to jump in on this. I think we had some brief discussions on this. But if you notice, in the project cost, there's a contingency number in there of 6%, which is just about $600,000. In a perfect world, we're not going to use that. We're going to hope and pray we don't. But it's in there just in case. And my concern with that is, let's say it is a perfect world, we don't use that, and we obligated $1 million of ARPA money, and we don't use it. we should have some type of discussion on the hierarchy of these additional funds on what gets used first. Do you know what I'm getting at? Do we
Yeah.
want to
Yes, I
use the
do.
I
ARPA
got
money
you.
first? Do we want to use whatever first to make sure there's a buffer?
Yeah.
Just so you as the board understand that, because we want to use the ARPA money, we got to get it spent by that date.
Right.
We don't want to leave it hanging, might
Right,
be the right word.
exactly.
So, Chris, can you compound on that, or do you want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Lauren. And, you know, just being really frank, if I had already started composing in my mind the resolution for this for the 19th, and to Lauren's point, if we proceeded with it as we've shown here on this spreadsheet, I would have the resolution include a statement that the contingency money would go back to the solid waste department and that the ARP money be spent. And my reason for saying that was because I was concerned that there'd be some sort of violation if we turned it back, because who would we turn it back to? And to Lauren's point, I'm not trying to take advantage of the county, or I'm glad that this is coming up for discussion. The other thing that could be considered as we look at this and the Rockwall project is if between the two of them you want to spend the money, there may be some deciding to be done in December as those projects go forward to revisit or finalize it. But I would maybe just suggest that we should have a game plan, you know, when we award this bid. And if that means lowering the number from 1 million, you know, would certainly understand that. We're very grateful for the county to consider using this money or in some portion of it for us. That's all I have to say.
The one thing too that I may add, Chris, would you know when we would have an actual final closing cost for that landfill? You know, there's, like Denise said, you know, we allocated to 700,000 and we used 256 of it. You know, so
Yeah.
there's, you know, $440,000
That has to come back
that's
into
already
the co-
allocated, you know, that could come off that 1 million when that comes. But I know they're working on the final closure. There might be a little bit of topsoil, but do you know, Chris, roughly when Widseth might have that, a final idea when we might have that done?
So we already have a good idea on that, and if I recall correctly, it's the primary remaining expense is really Widseth writing the report. In their review this fall, there were some punch list items for the contractor, but without having all the numbers in front of me, what I recall is that we're projecting to have $300,000 we'll turn back on that to the county. So if I'm not clear enough with that, my understanding is with discussion with Widseth, your ARP available funds should go from 1.599 to 1.899.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And I guess, you know, we've got to just be smart with what we find out tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, you know, plan on bringing this forward on the 19th and. Yeah. We had some very
So
good bids, good close bids, yeah.
Could I make a couple other comments just overall on the project?
Yes,
So in addition to the financing, there's a couple other items I just wanted to share with you to make sure that you see the schedule. And that's relating to, you know, how our relationship is with the MPCA. There's a couple things that still need to be tied up with them, and I've been communicating with their grant project manager, Jeannie Givens, and we still don't have an agreement from the state of Minnesota for the additional 2.79 million. She has said in an email as of 10:30 last night that she does not expect to have that agreement ready to be signed on March 19th. And, you know, I just want you to be prepared to, you know, I don't want you surprised at that time. She's telling me that she should have a draft agreement, but it's not executed. So that money isn't, you know, they haven't fully committed it to you, but the legislator voted on it. So my personal opinion is that I think we need to move forward. But I just want you to be aware of that in case you wanted to talk more about it. The other thing is that we don't actually have an MPCA engineer designated to Todd County anymore. You may remember, we may have shared with you that their past engineer has moved on to a different position. So they're working on that, but it's kind of a technicality is we need their approval of the bid documents, the design, in the same way that when you pull a plumbing permit or an electrical permit, the state needs to, give you a permit for that. So they're working on those things, but I just want you to be aware that we're communicating with the state on that, and we're doing everything we can on our end to assure that those administrative duties are being covered by at least whatever we can do.
So Chris, have you been in contact with Representative Weiner?
I actually just emailed his LA this morning, and I'm waiting for an email back because I'm at the Capitol as we speak and was wondering if he had any time today to talk. Is there anything specific that you'd like me to say to him?
More money?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, so we have a line item in committed funds of 2.795 million, 2023, that's what he's talking about?
Yes.
How can it be called committed if they haven't agreed to it yet?
Well, the legislator did, but basically the finance end of the state, they've, in the last 12 months, they haven't written out the agreement. So, I mean, as I've talked to people, I don't know how the accountants, they can't disobey the legislator, but it's just kind of a habit down at the Capitol. They've got more things to do than they have time to do it. And, essentially what I've been told, and I'm paraphrasing, is that they assure us they'll get us the money, but they have a pile of work on the in basket and they can't get it in the out basket fast enough.
Yeah, because I've seen it in writing. I have seen it, that it's allocated through the legislators.
Yes.
Okay.
It's very scary to go forward with this without it.
I can empathize with you, I guess, from my experience here and talking with people. This is becoming more of the norm than the exception. So if you want to receive $6.8 million from the state, you have to put up with some of their eccentricities. And I would refer to Lauren to see if he has any comments on that, because he spends probably more state and federal money than I ever do.
They can be a challenge. If you can understand what I mean by that.
Well, you can just
Is
say
the 2.795 million, was that in a line item in the bill?
Yes.
And the bill was
for-
passed?
Right, and it's
So
like
the
an
only way,
omnibus bill.
the only way that could be removed is if the legislature removed it from the bill, right? So
Right, and it's part of the
MPCA
general
directly
fund.
couldn't remove it.
No, they don't have authority.
It'd only be a legislative action.
Right.
So our risk would be pretty minimal,
Minimal.
Yeah.
the way I see it.
this was part of an omnibus? So it was,
Yeah, so it's part of their general fund, actually. This is not bond money. The 2.795 is in their budget. It's cash. It's part of their cash budget.
So we've had this in the past where we've had line item stuff for specifically on the Staples Overpass Bridge.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to get the project moving, get the bid done, and then you go do the bonding agreement, which you've seen us do for other bridges, and get the project rolling with the trust that when you go apply for the money or get the bonding agreement, they'll pass the money on to you as it's listed in the bill itself, if I'm saying that correctly. Does that make sense, Commissioner Byers?
yeah,
But it's not sitting right here in
Oh,
the,
yeah, I get it.
inside Todd County.
Attached to a bunch of other stuff that
Yeah.
may or may not be worthwhile.
Any other questions?
Sorry for that question. Okay.
Okay. Comments?
Good.
Okay, we'll wait till, Randy, are you okay?
Yep.
Okay, then we'll wait and bring it forward and we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you much.
Chris, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Chris.
Thanks.
One more.
And I'm up. I don't even remember what I was gonna say now. We were presented with a petition from the Osakis Lid Improvement District. Their petition came in, I believe, already almost like a year and a half ago where they started this process. It is a joint lid with Douglas County, so everything we do jointly with them. Their petition is presented to us. Then at that time, I am given literally a stack about as big as this box of petitions. What they do is, as the association, they go around the lake. They ask their landowners if they wish to be a part of this lid. They get the signatures. They need 51% plus one vote over to qualify. They have that. I have a list here, just some few, probably 40 that I questioned with County Attorney Lindeman, just because they're resort owners. I'm not sure if they own the land, so that was only my concern on these. But even if these were thrown out signatures, they would still have enough to move forward. What will happen now with this lid is I will present it at the next meeting as an acknowledgement of the petition. You will acknowledge that petition. After that, we will set a hearing date. The hearing will be held like during a normal board meeting, and then we have 30 days from that everything begins, whether you're going to approve or deny it, and all the steps take place as statute guidelines us to do. So, and maybe Commissioner Newman, you can speak on why the lid is seeking, or why the Lake Association is seeking a lid. You maybe know that better than I do. I was just handed the petition and did the research.
Yeah, they're working on curly leaf pondweed. They don't have enough funding to take it, remove it from the lake. They're also looking at taking out the dam on the Sauk River, which could be really interesting. I will share with the board on this. I will remain absent on this. I will not participate in any of the board's discussions on this because I do have a direct conflict.
Okay.
So,
And
but I'll share now that, yeah, the Lake Association just wants more money to do more projects, and, we're already getting taxed by the Sauk River watershed, which is basically financing the same thing, so it's just another taxation on.
right, and when they establish a lid, just so you know, a lake improvement district is a taxing authority then. They have the right to impose a tax on their taxpayers. So they will each year submit, like, I'll give you, for example, we currently have Swan Lake, and they do a 5-year plan. They come before the board. They tell you what they have in their annual budget, what projects they've done, and they assess a $95 fee to their lake improvement district landowners. And we do $95 every year for 5 years. And then after 5 years, they review it and they decide if they're gonna continue or if they're gonna increase it. So we've been doing that for some time. That's been on probably, I wanna say 20 years now already, because it's been on while I've been in office, and Karen Bush is the one that installed that.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know what they've done on Swan Lake, but they do come once in a while and do an annual presentation to you as a board. But they are a taxing district and they can do this. Once you approve them to be a lid, they have the authority. Right now, they don't.
And I think we're invited to their annual meeting.
Right, so if Douglas County denies it, it dies, okay, right?
I don't know that verbiage for sure.
I'm just saying, if they do, okay,
Then we got
it's the
nothing.
same scenario, it goes to the DNR.
Oh.
So they can petition the DNR to, right?
I have worked with Vicky at Douglas County, she's the auditor treasurer, and we have been in discussions with Osaka School District. Because of this being joint, you will have to take your board meeting over to a joint location with Douglas County coming together and having a joint meeting on this. So we will actually be having a remote meeting at the Osakas Auditorium. It gets bigger, so I'm just trying to educate you.
Fun.
We can send you some information on lid facts and findings if you need to know that, but
So the
anyhow,
first
so
step,
today I was just presenting that. I
Yeah.
did get the petition. I've done my legwork. Now we're ready to move forward with the next steps in visiting with John, if he has anything to comment.
Madam Chair, the public hearing or the meeting that Denise is describing is a matter of statute. This is something that
Yes.
has to happen once our county has taken action.
Right.
And assuming Douglas County takes the
Right.
same action.
And like I said, I've been in contact with her, so she on March 19th will be taking to her board as well. So we'll be in unison on taking to our boards, for you to acknowledge the petition.
okay, and on the 19th, we're just acknowledging the
Acknowledging,
petition
yep.
and setting a hearing date.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all you're doing.
Do we know anywhere on Douglas's stance at all on this thing? Does anybody know any
I have-
information on their side? Nobody's got an in?
And I do have a DNR lady that's
Don't know what they're
been
getting into.
emailing me once a month asking where we're at on it, so.
Okay.
What?
Charlie Meyer have,
Which share?
would he have any
Input.
knowledge
On what now?
on this lid?
Oh,
On their stance.
Understands?
Douglas.
I have,
Okay, thank you.
So that's all I have to present. I just wanted to make you aware that I'll be bringing it.
Thanks, Denise.
Okay. Is there anything to be brought before the work session? If not, we will, oh,
I'm sorry, one last thing.
Yes.
I don't know, again, help me out here.
okay.
Todd, cut, it's not on here, so I can't talk about him.
No.
No.
Be on the agenda.
End of the meeting.
next time.
Okay, the work session is
Close.
Closed.
Perfect. I gotta go across this hall.